Okay, welcome all you TV watchers to the Water Management Committee meeting. So we'll call the meeting to order. And first of all, do we have any public or committee comments? Hearing none, this might be a quick meeting. Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority, I know that was Chuck Griffin. I don't know that we really need to take up on this one. He may have some things he wants to report, but I think he did our last board meeting about the previous meeting. And so unless there's something, Don, that you have under that you want to touch on, anything of interest that we may want to.
I'm trying to remember what took place. I know we had a staff call yesterday and went over the agenda for the August meeting, and there really wasn't anything on the agenda other than the water resource manager report and the general manager's report. So it could change. They had a couple of placeholders there just in case something comes up, but there was nothing identified during yesterday's call. So.
Okay. And of course, that request has gone public, the one about the meeting they're having in August, the CEQA meeting. That was publicly issued, wasn't it? The one that I got.
Oh, that was publicly issued. I got that.
It sounds to me like he sent it out and
that was sent by Stantec, which is one of the consultants. So I don't know that it's been publicized yet.
Okay.
I
was wondering because the way he wrote it is that I sent this out, but it all went to trash or went somewhere and they resent it and all. But it looks like it's a formal invitation, and it has to be out 30 days before. So, okay, we'll just move on from there. Maybe we'll hear more about it at the upcoming GA meeting. All right, number 4, which I have a feeling is going to be coming off this soon, is the aqueduct release.
Yeah, so the releases into the Indian Wells Valley groundwater basin were brought to, they ceased on July 18th. And then based on the release rates that we were getting from LADWP on a daily basis, we estimate a total of 10,085.6 acre feet was released into the basin. And although the leading edge of the flow did cross Indian Kern Road and go onto the base a couple of times, never really endangered any of the infrastructure on the base. So I think we made a good decision not trying to impede the flow any.
Well, you do it all the sandbags you have. Didn't Chuck give you a bunch of sandbags? You got them piled up out back, or? You got them, yeah, okay.
So I think now, as we talked about before, we should focus on long-term project for future releases. Better capture these releases and put them to beneficial use in the aquifer.
I agree with you, and I don't want to lose track of this. So maybe we just want to change that number 4 to or change that item to the one about handling future releases or plans for future releases to avoid this type of emergency again. But it may be something we want to do. So, and I'm actually, it's funny that they have it down to the 0.6 acre feet. And like we questioned how they were measuring it. That's almost as accurate as you are, Jason, on your gallons, but it is unusual that they got it that close. All right. Recycled water. Where are you guys with that? Same old?
Yeah, nothing really new to report this month. The board has expressed interest in continuing discussions with the city because acquiring that recycled water could result in a credit against the district's requirement to bring in imported water supply to meet its needs. But no meetings have taken place. We should note, and it was mentioned, I believe, at the workshop, that Krieger and Stewart for the past over a year has been working with the water resources manager and such engineers on a recycled water alternative study. And their role going forward is uncertain due to concerns that were expressed by the Groundwater Authority Legal Counsel and due to ongoing litigation.
Yeah. Well, I'll play Chuck Griffin on this one a little bit because I know what he's thinking. The reason that we're getting the pushed aside on the wastewater is the fact that we wouldn't sign that original contract back from 2018 or 19, something like that. And that's the big idea that they have, that we're not allowed that water is because we haven't signed a particular contract. But there's got to be something that could be done. And in the future, I think when you look at it, I mean, the whole idea was, if I remember correctly, if we sign that contract, that we would be entitled to that water, and we can add that to our allocated amount, so we would pay less replenishment fee. That was it. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But I don't doubt that there's maybe something else we can look at, where we say, okay, we still want to work with you, but since we're not going to sign a contract, which we've already made public we're not going to, that we understand that we won't get credit for that water until we actually take it. So there's ideas that he had there. And I'm sorry to see we're in this situation. I trust that we're going to still continue to try to work with the city the best we can, and maybe get them more on board. They need something to do with that water, and we're willing to work with them on it. But I was disappointed to hear when we asked for that information from the questions and the answers from the DOR, that we weren't allowed them, even though we've been working with them for months and months on the project. So, but then it came as no surprise, because I know when Chuck asked for that information, and county council got on the line and explained fully that why we're not getting the water, or are they concerned with us getting the water, that something like this would happen. But it's one of those items that we just need to put to see if we can make something happen here soon, get working together. So we are where we are with it, and as you know, I'm sure Don's assured that the board's not going to give up on it. All right. Anything else? How about anybody calling it out there? I see one person. One person's listening, unless that's you. Okay. I see you're set up for hundreds of people up there too. 001. Okay, brackish water.
Only thing to report, Wade Major with Ecologic is wrapping up the final tasks, include evaluating the shallow well impacts in the study area based on existing predicted drawdowns using the DRI model, and also starting to compile the final draft feasibility study report. The final report will be shared with the members of the group, which haven't met in well over a year now, probably closer to a year and a half. Provide that report for review and comment, and then the study is scheduled to be wrapped up December 30th, 2023.
Are the same participants still are all the same participants still part of
Yeah.
of everything? Okay.
Yeah.
And the other question I heard from somebody once is, it's obvious that the bulk of the brackish water, which is the best quality to use for this, is underneath the base. And that's still a true statement. That's where ideally it would like to come from. And then also that if you obtain the brackish water from another location, it may change the way the system has to operate, because the solids increase, or something changes with the composition of the water. In other words, if you get there's different, I guess you can call it, qualities of brackish water, and the better the quality, the system is built differently. Is that what I'm understanding? And that's why you're looking at other areas.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I'm making myself clear. At least it sounds like it to me, that they're looking for brackish water that isn't that ideal brackish water to use in a test.
There were certain specifications for this test, but because we couldn't have access to the base, we had to settle for something for an area that didn't meet all the criteria.
Okay, all right. But it's still the same participants. I just wanted to be sure everybody was still involved with it.
Yeah, other than the Navy was one of the original participants. They dropped out a long time ago.
Yeah. Is the next phase would be to try to find some money available for a pilot study?
Depending on the results of the feasibility study, if it
Okay.
looks like there's a possibility in doing the financial analysis, if it
Right.
figures out, then there would be another grant application
Okay.
submitted for a pilot test.
Great, all right. Call holding. There we go. I knew somebody would call in. So is anybody on the line would like to have a question? Anybody there?
Yes, this is Renee Estelask. On the
Yes.
brackish water, I just have some questions. It's a feasibility study that's been going on for a couple years now.
Yes.
Okay, and then, so who was doing it, and like, um, what do you expect to show, like, if it's feasible to clean out this brackish water and then reuse it for what purposes?
I'm gonna let Don answer that one because we've been talking about this for a couple of years. So please, Don, to do your best.
The brackish study is funded from two places. We received a grant from the Department of Water Resources, and then there was seed money contributed between Searles Valley Minerals, Mojave Pistachios, the Water District, and Meadowbrook Dairy. So those are the primary partners. As I said earlier, the Navy participated early on, but then they dropped off. The purpose was to evaluate the brackish resources in the basin. We know there's a large quantity of brackish water within the basin. To look at, there have been new technologies developed since this has last been looked at, to look at the feasibility of recovering that brackish water, treating it, and putting it to use here in the basin. I'm not sure, does that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. I just wanted to know, what can the water be used for?
It can be blended with other water. One advantage of recovering the brackish water and using it is that, as was stated at the workshop, if you can recover that water, you prevent it from migrating towards better quality water wells. There's higher quality water in the basin. It's being pumped, and if you don't recover that brackish water, it will tend to migrate over time towards those production wells. The other benefit is reducing salts from the basin. There's a salt nutrient management plan that's been submitted probably 5-6 years ago, maybe. It was required to Lahontan. And by recovering the brackish water, you're removing salts from the basin and preventing them from accumulating and building up to unacceptable levels.
Is there any danger in removing the brackish water in the first place and causing migration, just siphoning it out to treat it?
Is there any danger to removing the brackish water?
Yeah, because wouldn't that cause movement or flow of other brackish water that you're not siphoning, or a current in the basin that could contaminate the good water or the higher quality water?
I think we need a geologist to answer that one. I think Don pretty much stated that the removal of brackish water is beneficial in a couple ways. One, it won't infiltrate some of our sites where we're currently having potable fresh water with low solids, and I believe the other way is for salt nutrients into removing them from the valley. Your question about whether removing it will cause other brackish water to come in, well, maybe. I'm not a geologist, but if it did, then you have more brackish water.
Wherever you pump water, you're going to be moving water towards those wells. So is that going to have a negative impact? I wouldn't think so.
And if I remember the study correctly, the ideal brackish water, which is basically under the base, is at what I would call the deepest level. In other words, you have certain levels of water, and at the lowermost level is where that pool sort of sets. And thought that's where I sort of felt it was, and so it's. I think it's. I believe it's a win-win, even though it may not be considered new water. It's a stopgap. It also, depending on how well you treat it, it could be treated right to potable water. It could be treated to water that can be blended. There's all kinds of options. And I think that's what this feasibility study is all about. Once they prove up that and the economics of it, then if it looks like a pilot plan is needed, then some more questions like that would be answered.
Okay.
Thank you.
So does the water district get the report, and then are you guys gonna divulge it to the public at one of the meetings, or does it just stay within that group that helped sponsor it?
Well, the report is being funded by that group that I mentioned earlier, so when the feasibility report is is shared with them, they'll review and comment. It'll be submitted to DWR as required. And I would hope that the Groundwater Authority would have interest in what that report has to say.
Okay, so it goes to DWR, and then other entities would have to ask to find out what was in the report?
No, I'm sure it'd be made public. It's being paid for out of
Okay.
public money, public funds, so it'd be available to the public.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank
for
you.
answering the questions.
All right, I think we are done with brackish water. Alternate water sources, I'm not sure where we are with that as well. I mean,
Well, there has been some progress. John Jansen finally
right,
completed his draft final report on the reprocessing of the seismic data. So it was sent to Tim Parker myself. I went through it. I don't see any changes to be made. It's very thorough. So he'll finalize that. So with regard to the El Paso subbasin, though, Krieger and Stewart and Tim Parker, they did previously put together a drilling exploration program for monitoring and doing some production testing testing production wells and aquifer testing. That was done a couple of years ago. They included the AEM data that was collected by SkyTem. We discussed this at the board workshop as well. We're going to take the approach of approaching DWR to get funding from the Technical Support Services Program to fund some additional drilling. And as Tim stated at the workshop, it appears that the approach that they want is that the Groundwater Authority makes the application. So it was suggested that we put together a draft of a proposal for additional monitoring well drilling that we need in the El Paso area and present it to the Groundwater Authority General Manager as well as the Water Resources Manager, Stetson, for their review and comment, and ultimately bring it to the Groundwater Authority to see if they have interest in submitting a proposal. On a parallel path, we were told that Stetson is also preparing a technical memo with a recommendation for exploring the El Paso area that they intend to share with their technical advisory committee. And I'm not sure of the progress on that, but
okay.
whatever they come up with, the intent is to share that or to include that as part of the 5-year GSP update.
So the information we gathered is Jensen, he's issuing a final report, is that it, or Jensen is, or what's the culmination of everything that's been done on the work that Jensen and Tim have been working on? That's just completing.
Basically just reports on what they did in terms of reprocessing the data, what they acquired, how much they acquired,
Okay.
Results of the reprocessing, what it shows, comparing it to the AEM data.
Okay.
It's just a
So
technical.
it's just additional geographic or geological data, either confirming it or adding anything new that may have come out. Okay. Great.
Essentially showing that with the newer technology, you could get better results from the seismic work, and then compare it to the AEM data, the SkyTem data.
Okay.
And basically it coincides with what the SkyTem data showed. So it's just a technical memorandum summarizing all the work that he did.
Yeah, I remember Tim saying what next on the step is I won't call it an exploration well as much as a monitoring wells. And I agree that working with the GA to see if that's something they have in plan or working with them for locations and such might be well worth it. And I'm hoping that's our next move so we find out what's going on up there. All right. Okay. Anything else on that? Hearing none. Future agenda items, as I requested, I think the LADWP aqueduct water release, we ought to go ahead and add one, even though we may not talk a lot about it, about the future of handling releases like that to prevent damages and instead of going into the mode that we were in, scrambling to see what we can do, that we look at some long-term plan. Nobody else? That's it? Goodness gracious. All right. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting at 2:21. Thank you. And if you're listening out there, Chuck, thank you.